Okay, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 315 today, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the first cover where Venom actually appears. It's obviously 316 is the next book, which is the iconic cover of Venom. But this, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong here, is the first time Venom is actually shown on the cover of an Amazing Spider-Man book. So I've got 3 copies of this I'm going to be grading today. There's 2 newsstands and 1 direct copy, so I'm not going to waste any time here. We're going to get, in the last video we promised to move a little bit faster on these, so we're going to try and stick to this. So I'm just going to go through the process really quick here. We're not going to belabor the point here and just get to it. We got a sharp corner there, sharp corner there. Corners are amazing. I got a ding on the top here, ding on the bottom here. Not perfect corner. These corners have definitely been hit at some point, at least once. So we're going to go ahead and just downgrade. If everything else was flawless, I'm going to say 9.6 with an outside chance of 9.8 at that point. Let's look at the spine. So we have tick, 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 tick. Okay, we have about 5 ticks or so. Color break, color break. Color break, color break, color break. So it looks like all of them, well actually, it's kind of hard to tell on this cover. Yeah, that's not color break. That is there. Some of this is just, it's part of the design from the back cover, so I have to be careful. We're going to call it 3 or 4 minor color breaking spine ticks. This one right here is really noticeable. But seeing as the cover has these designs anyways, it's not as noticeable as it would normally be. That's definitely a noticeable one right there. That's going to ding us in there. I believe that's one. It's kind of hard to tell on this one. Yeah, that's definitely one. So there's 2 prominent ones that are easily seeable. You know, it's not like it's a tick going like an inch into the book, you know, but they're definitely there. So I'm thinking based on the spine, the 2 dings there, there's really nothing going on as far as bends or handling wear in the center. So we're going to say this is a 9.4 with an outside chance of 9.6 as it sits, which is really good for a, you know, for a newsstand copy. I would be thrilled to get a 9.0 or better in this newsstand. So looking at the back, we always start with the corners. We don't want to ever forget the corners. That one's sharp there. We have a little bend on the bottom here. The corner itself is pretty sharp. It's got a little ding to it though. So we got a ding, tiny ding there. I already talked about this top and bottom of the spine. And this back cover on the spine is actually better than I thought it was going to be with this kind of black, darker color here. There is a little bit of a, what is that going on up there? Is that part? Let me look at my magnifying just real quick here. Yeah, that's definitely a color break on the top. So we have a color break here. And honestly, we have a couple here. Yeah. But that's about it. This back is probably pretty close to what the front is. So we'll think 9.4 range for sure right now based on what I'm looking at. I don't think we're yet at 9.2. Yeah, there's a little bend here. Now, does that break color? I don't know if you can see it right here. No, I guess it doesn't. So if I get an angle, yeah, there's handling wear here. That's gonna. So we're down to 9.2 with these little thumb. It's probably not going to show up very well, but it might be showing up. There's a bunch of little thumb spots right there. They aren't breaking color though. This is looking like a 9.2 book as we sit right now. So let's just take a look at the inside real quick. Yeah, there's a little tiny color break on the inside here from where that bend is. It's nothing major, but it's there. So we have off-white to white, I'm pretty sure, on this book. And I have gone through this, and there's not really much going on the inside, so I'm not going to obviously thumb through this more than I have to. So I actually have gone through these books, and I just want to, if there's anything, I've already documented it, and I'll let you know about it. Okay. It's kind of a miscut here, like a miswrap, but I don't think it's enough to, you know, miswraps are always kind of up in the air whether they affect value anyway. That's a really cool illustration right there. Yeah, inside looks good, but definitely off-white to white. You know, I'm just kind of going back on what I said. This spine is a little worse than I'm thinking it was. I think I'm being a little bit too generous. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, more like 6 color breaks there, and then 3 on the back. So we're actually about 9 color breaking ticks on this book. So I'm going to renege on what I said and say this is probably a 9.0 or even 8.5. This is very subjective here. The book presents extremely well. You're obviously not seeing the back, and I don't know. I might actually go with this being an 8.5. There are some tiny little bends here in the center I'm seeing. The good news is I think a ton of that'll press out. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see on the video, but this is an attractive book. But you know how you just look at a book and you're like, that book is not super high. It's not ultra high grade. There's almost like a little bit of a tiny fading or yellowing to the cover. It's like very slight, but it's there. I can kind of, I don't think it's the lighting in here. This is not the sharpest, most perfect book. I think this book has sat out on a coffee table. It's had some sun get on it. You can see by the off-white pages. I don't think it's enough to kill it, but I think we're definitely going down a grade. If I'm calling this a 9.2 or 9.0 and I'm going to downgrade it again because of this, I'm going to be real. I would call this a borderline 9.0, 8.5. And that's just, I think there's enough handling wear and enough dings. There actually is a bend here on the bottom as well that I just noticed. So that's definitely getting us more toward the 8.5. Okay, so I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm going to call this an 8.5 if I was to send it right now, with the top of the range being 9.0. I don't think it's going to get an 8.0 ever, but it could. So I think after press, I'm going to say the median range is 9.2 on this. Most often we're going to get a 9.2. With an outside chance of 9.4, 9.0. Wouldn't be surprised. So I'm going to call this 8.5, and I'm expecting a 9.2, and we'll just go with that. So I'm going to pause the video while I get the next copy out. Okay, this is the next copy, and I do have these labeled, by the way, in case you're wondering, so I'll be able to differentiate these. And, you know, obviously we'll have video and pictures of these, so we'll be able to identify these when they come back. If I'm doing, I have a handful of books that I'm doing multiple copies of. But anyway, this one looks even dingier than the last one. Not that the last one was like, it's all relative, right? They're all high-grade books, mid-high to high-grade. So, but this has definitely got a little bit, it's been in the sun or been out a lot. I guarantee if I flip open this front page, we're going to see some yellowing. And sure enough, that might even be off-white, not even off-white to white. So we'll keep that in mind. I don't think that's going to ding it. Obviously, it'll make it not a 9.8, but I don't think this book has got any chance of that anyway. So first of all, let's look at the corners. Corners are sharp. That's the good news. Now, whenever I'm looking at buying a book, whether it be on eBay or wherever, you know, that's one of the main criteria is looking for these sharp corners, because you're just not, if a picture online or whatever doesn't look like it has sharp corners, I know it can't get a 9.8. So that's the first thing I look for, and it's always a gamble when you buy a book. Obviously, when people take pictures, a lot of times they'll try and make their book look better. So when a book arrives, sometimes it's just in this condition, but that's why I pay like 8.0 prices when I'm buying a book that I think might be 9.4 or better. I always drop way down when I'm buying a book, but I've already done a video on buying, you know, books on eBay or whatever, so I'll link that above in the description as well. So let's go ahead and just continue on. So we got a bend here on the bottom. This is like a pretty good bend. Let's seeing if it's going to show up. There's no color break to it, but it's definitely there, and that I think will press. Yeah, it's right there. Let's see if I can get it. Very tricky to look at the camera and get the light right here, but it's definitely there. If you can't see it, take my word for it. The spine here is dinged a lot more than the last book, and dinged here as well. There's definitely minor dings, but they're there. Spine ticks. Boy, I'm just having trouble with this lighting to get all the angles. But yeah, you can definitely see a bunch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 just showing here on the front that I can see. As far as color breaks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll call that part of the design. So there's at least 6 color breaks here on the back. We'll call it 6 to 7. And these are very noticeable here. They're not super terrible, but they're definitely there. As far as the middle of the cover, it's pretty nice. There's some handling wear here, and of course this bend here. So just looking at all this, I'm already calling this a 9.2. Just based on the front. If there's nothing else on this book, this is a 9.2, and we're not ever going to go higher than that. There's just too many color breaks in the spine. We got the bend here, you know, we got a little bit of a bend here. The spine is just too dinged on the top and bottom. So let's go ahead and flip it over. And first thing you notice here is a crease here with color break. I mean, I immediately see that. So that's going to ding us down to at least probably 9.0 right there. And remember, we've talked about how to grade high-grade books. I did a video on that. I'll put a link to that as well. And it's a deductive process. Is that as you find flaws and you get enough accumulated, you deduct a grade. You know, so that's why it was a 9.2. Now I'm down to 9.0 with that. So we'll continue. There's a lot of little. We can tell where somebody was holding this book and turning pages. So this is definitely a read copy right here. It's been read quite a bit. There's a bend here in the corner. You know, spine here has, it's like same number of ticks. And sorry, I'm having trouble getting the whole book in the shots here. I need to work on getting a better setup for this. This little tripod I'm using is just not working for this. If anybody knows a good idea for how to do videos like this, please leave a comment below. But yeah, we have the spine actually looks better on the back, but we definitely have color break there, color break, color break. You know, I'm calling this an 8.5 based on this back right here. And actually, I'm looking here, there's another color break. I don't think that's part of the design. I'm going to glance here at another book, another copy. Yeah, that's definitely not part. So that's another color break. So now I'm at 8.0. That's just that quickly. I've gone down to 8.0. I might be being a little bit conservative, but the book looks nice on the inside. I didn't see any flaws with it. I've looked through it. It's definitely off-white or off-white to white. Could go either way. But right now I'm sitting at that 8.0 range. And I think after press, if I had to guess, I'm thinking this is a 9.0 book. Possibly 9.2. You know, could go 8 as well though. You know, or 8.5, but with an outside chance. So I think there's just as likelihood of this being greater than 8 as it is a 9.2, which is weird, right? You wouldn't normally think that. But I think probably half the time this is graded like 9.2. I'm sorry, 9.0. I think the other half of the time it's something else. Like half the time 9.0, maybe 20% 9.2, 20% 8.5. What did I say? 9.2, 8.5, and then that other 10% that's left or whatever. 5% it'll be 9.2 and 5% will be 8.0. So I wouldn't be surprised at any of those grades. But I'm thinking this is a strong 9.0 book after press. Possibly could see this being still a 9.2, but I just don't see it. I mean, I think it's possible, but I would never grade this book 9.2. Unless for some reason it just cleans up like a lot more than I expected to with a press. So we'll roll with that and let's go on to the next book. I'll pause the video here for a second. All right, now we have the final copy here, which is a direct copy. Oh, before we move on to this one though, I wanted to say that you've noticed on these newsstands how difficult it is to get ultra high grade. You guys know how tough it is. I actually have a 9.6 copy of this in newsstand. And it is extremely, extremely rare to get 9.6 or higher in this book. I don't know how, I'm going to look it up after I record this, obviously, but I'll show you the stats on Go Collect, but very, very few newsstands have sold in the last whenever period they have on there. But anyways, this is a direct copy. And from what I can tell, this does not have that obvious dinginess to it that the last two copies had. This one is very clean. Doesn't look like it was ever exposed to much light. So I'm thinking right now, okay, there's no automatic deductions for like dinginess or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know if that's the right terminology, but I'm going to roll with it. We have a sharp, really sharp corner there. I mean, it's like almost ridiculously sharp. Like it could draw blood there if I was to stab it right there. Yep, same thing on this corner. These corners are good. I don't know if these are about as good as you get on corners. Spine, I can already see this top of the spine is just, there is nothing on that. Maybe a tiny little bindery thing on the back side. This bottom here as well, you can see there's like no obvious ding to it from the front, and just a tiny little bindery thing on the bottom. So far we're still sitting at 9.8 on this book. So let's go ahead and look at the spine. There's a tick here. Does not break color. It's in the white. You'll notice that this is wrapped a little differently than the last books. The black is all on the black and the white is all on the front, which I don't know. I'm guessing that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the way they intended. But it's not so miswrapped. It's not a miswrap though, because this, if it is, this dollar would be on the back page. So we'll turn it over here in a second, but I'm thinking this is just a perfectly wrapped book. There's ticks here and here, tick there. And I definitely recommend the feel method first before you do anything else. Before you angle it or anything like that, you can just, the thumb reveals everything. There's another one right there. Okay, so let's get it down at an angle. This is just a white, it's just hard to see. That's why you have to use your finger. It's just very hard to see ticks on a white book. You can see them here. But yeah, there's a bunch of ticks here, a handful. There's no obvious color breaks. So we are still sitting at 9.8. This might be the first book we've gotten this far and had a book still looking good for 9.8. There's some tiny handling wear right here. There's a little bend. No color break though, that'll press. That's it. I don't see anything else. So as it sits right now before press with the ticks, this is going to probably take us down to 9.6 with this. So without press, 9.6, but we're still sitting at 9.8 after a press, in my opinion. And I don't think I've been doing the edges properly, so let's just look at these edges. I did look at the edges on the other books, but I don't think I talked enough about it. These edges are really good. There's a tiny little bend right here on the bottom that's going to press down. I don't want to fool with it though, make it worse. Okay, so let's turn the book over. It's a beautiful book. All right, checking the corners. Very nice. Very, very nice. There's that little bindery. You can see it's a bindery because it kind of flaps a little bit right there. That could be a tiny little ding, but it's not enough. It's negligible. And here, you can definitely see that's bindery on the top right there. And that is, it's definitely bindery, but it's a little bit, it's not, it's hard to say on that. I don't know if that'll count against it or not. Tell me what you think about that. It looks like it kind of goes down into the spine a little bit. So we'll call that a ding and we'll count it as a flaw. We'll err on the side of caution. There's a couple thumb things here. Edges looking pretty good from what I can see. Yeah, there's nothing here. This is why you handle a book with a board. I just bumped here on accident. If I didn't have this on a board, I would have just hit this page right here. That's why you gotta use a board when you're doing this. Being clumsy. Okay, so we definitely have a bend here. This is a pretty significant one right here. Does not break color, however. And there is a color breaking tick right here and here. So there's two color breaking ticks negligible on the back of this book. There's a bend here that's definitely going to take us down. It's going to take us down a lot. That's a pretty good one right here. If I was to submit that one, that's going to get us out of the 9.6 and 4 range probably. That's going to put us in 9.2 territory. I'm going to say 9.2 on this book. I'm pretty confident if I sent it in right now, it would be 9.2. Without this, I'm thinking 9.4, maybe even 9.6. But this is pretty significant. It may not show up good enough on the, but you can see it there. It's like two-tiered and it's about that long. But yeah, after press, I'm thinking we're in a basement of around 9.4 on this book. I'm thinking this is a 9.6. Even with this, I think with the two negligible color breaks, with this, and pretty much nothing else, I mean, we're talking about 1, 2 flaws, 3 flaws. I mean, call this a minor ding, call it 4 flaws. we're still in 9.6 territory on this book. So let's go ahead and just glance inside, just because we need to, right? And this book is definitely white pages. It may have looked like there's not much lighting up here from my lamps, so it might look a little darker up here. There could be an outside chance this is off white to white, but I'm thinking this is a white pages all the way. I'd be very surprised if this got anything but white pages. All right, so I'm just looking at this staple here. There might be a slight little stress on this staple. I don't think it's enough to get us off the 9.6 guess. It's gonna take us more borderline though, right? We gotta count it. Okay. This is the best book we've seen so far, I think. And what are we, 5 books in? 6, 4, 3, 6? I don't know. So I'm going to say 9.6 on this book. I'm going to call it right now, after press. And 9.4 being the bottom with a very slight outside chance of 9.8 here. So we're going to call this borderline 9496. So I'm going to think this is going to be 40% of the time a 9.6. Now, these are wild guesses on the percentages, ratios, but it's just based on what I just saw, you know. And I think this is the way you have to think about grading comics, as we've talked about before. Is you have to kind of lump it into groups. What do you think the likelihood of each one is? And that kind of gives you an idea of when it comes back and you get a pretty good sample, you can be like, this was my average. Like, I can almost say that this is a 9.45, I would say. Wait. 9.5. I would say this is a 9.5. I know they don't do that, but that's why I'm saying it's right in the middle of 9.6 and 9.4. Maybe, but because it's 9.5, we round up. So you see what I'm saying there? So I would say 40% of the time, 400 times out of 1,000, this is going to come back a 9.6. I would say 30% of the time, this is going to come back a 9.4. And of that last 30%, we're going to have probably 10% 9.8s. I think there's a 10% chance of a 9.8 on this book. And I think there's probably whatever's left over, 20% chance of a 9 point. You know what? I think it's more like 50-40. Half the time 9.6, 40% 9.4, 5% 9.8. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't even want to try and guess that. Let's just say there's that last 10%. Whatever. We don't need to get exact here. Just saying it's an outside chance of 9.8. And I think it's an even less of a chance of a 9.2. I don't see, somebody's got to give me a good reason to ever grade this a 9.2. This is a beautiful book with 4 flaws that I can find on it. How are you going to call this a 9.2? So we're going to say 9.4 is the bottom, and I'd be surprised at a 9.4. I'm actually thinking 9.6 all the way. What they're going to be doing here is they're going to say, well, this can't be a 9.8 because we have 4 things here. So it's got to be a 9.6. They're not going to think, well, it's got 4 here. But that's pretty bad. And there's nothing bad enough on this to ever go to 9.2. So we're going to stick with it here. We're expecting a 9.6 when this comes back. So that's it for 315. I know this is a 20-something minute video, but we did have 3 books. We'll be back to, I don't know, I think actually the next one might be 328. So we'll be through the Amazing Spider-Mans here pretty soon. Well, we got a few more Amazing Spider-Man, then we'll move on. I think we got a Conan 240. We got some good books in between them. We got a Conan 241 coming up. As you can see, I'm a McFarlane fan, and it just happens that I like other people too, and I like other books, but this sample here of what I'm doing just happens to be a bunch of McFarlane stuff that I just happen to be picking up. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to have fun while you are collecting. Have a good day.